Imagine a leader rising to power with bold promises, offering debt relief, distributing land to veterans, and improving the lives of everyday citizens. You'd think such changes would be embraced by the government, right? In ancient Rome, that wasn't the case. When Julius Caesar proposed reforms to tackle inequality and stabilize a fracturing society, the Roman Senate, a powerful group of elite aristocrats, did everything they could to block him. But why? Wasn't Caesar working for the greater good? The answer reveals a deeper story of power, privilege, and resistance to change. The Roman Senate was not interested in helping the masses. Their primary concern was safeguarding their wealth and influence. The story of their opposition to Caesar is a tale of how an oligarchy fought to maintain control, even at the expense of the republic itself. To understand their resistance, we first need to examine how the Roman Republic functioned. On paper, Rome was a democracy where citizens could vote and participate in politics. In reality, the Senate wielded the true power, a closed circle of wealthy aristocrats who made decisions behind the scenes. They weren't just governing, they were protecting a monopoly on land, resources, and political offices. Any challenge to that monopoly was treated as an existential threat. The Senate's control wasn't just about governance, it was about maintaining their privileged status. While the Republic presented itself as a democratic system, it was essentially an oligarchy, with the Senate at its core. They controlled policies like land distribution and financial systems, ensuring these served their own interests. When Julius Caesar emerged with a platform of reforms, he posed a direct challenge to this entrenched power structure. Unlike the Senate, Caesar understood the plight of Rome's common people. His reforms were aimed at addressing the widening gap between the rich and poor, a problem the Senate had ignored for years. Caesar's proposals included redistributing public lands to veterans, providing debt relief, and expanding the Senate to represent the provinces where many Romans lived and worked. These measures weren't just popular, they were necessary to address Rome's deepening social and economic crisis. But to the Senate, these changes threatened their dominance. Land reform endangered their vast estates, debt relief undermined their financial control, and expanding the Senate risked diluting their exclusive hold on power. To them, Caesar wasn't just a reformer. He was a disruptor who threatened to dismantle their authority. The Senate responded to Caesar's reforms with fierce resistance. They sought to protect their power at all costs, branding Caesar as a tyrant bent on destroying the Republic. They launched a campaign to discredit him, using exaggerated claims and outright falsehoods to paint him as a dictator hungry for absolute power. Their real fear, however, wasn't his ambition. It was his ability to shift power from the aristocracy to the people. The Senate weaponized the language of democracy to justify their opposition, portraying themselves as defenders of the Republic. In reality, they were defending their own privileges, not democratic ideals. Their resistance came to a head when they forced Caesar into an impossible position. Backed into a corner by Senate machinations, Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army in 49 BCE, sparking a civil war. The Senate framed this as an act of tyranny, but it was their own refusal to engage with necessary reforms that pushed Caesar to take such a drastic step. Their cries of protecting democracy rang hollow to a populace increasingly disillusioned with Senate rule. While Caesar's actions were controversial, they resonated with a Roman society tired of an aristocracy that ignored their needs. Despite the Senate's efforts, their opposition to Caesar ultimately failed. By refusing to embrace reforms, they alienated the people they claimed to represent. Caesar's popularity continued to grow, and the Senate became increasingly seen as an out-of-touch oligarchy. Even after Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, the Senate's power continued to erode. They had succeeded in eliminating one man, but they couldn't stop the tide of social and political change that followed. Their refusal to adapt deepened Rome's divisions and paved the way for the rise of the Roman Empire. The Senate's downfall serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of resisting necessary change. In their desperate attempt to preserve their aristocratic dominance, they hastened the very collapse they sought to avoid. Their failure to address the needs of the people created a power vacuum that future emperors would fill, consolidating far more authority than Caesar ever wielded. Julius Caesar's reforms, though controversial, were a genuine effort to address the systemic inequalities that threatened Rome. The Senate's opposition wasn't about preserving the Republic, it was about protecting their own privilege. This story of Caesar and the Senate reveals the consequences of elite resistance to reform. When those in power prioritize their own interests over the needs of the broader population, they risk destabilizing the very systems they aim to protect. For Rome, the price of that resistance was the fall of the Republic and the rise of imperial rule. Caesar's legacy endures as a complex but pivotal figure in history, a leader who tried to bridge the gap between an out-of-touch aristocracy and a restless population. The Senate, on the other hand, is remembered as a cautionary example of what happens when power is hoarded at the expense of progress. If you found this exploration of Rome's political struggles insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories from history. The past offers invaluable lessons, reminding us that the choices of leaders and elites often shape the course of civilizations in profound ways.